Hi there, I am Lynn Muth. I am a avid, sometimes called rabid gardener. I've been gardening all my life, and I'm passionate about helping other people become avid or rabid gardeners. If you have a black thumb, we'll help you turn that at least into a brown one.
Hi, I'm Ramona Howard, and like Lynn, I'm also an avid gardener, but unlike Lynn, I totally suck at it. So even though I'm a master gardener, I consider myself a newbie. Lynn and I decided to finally get together and create a show for people who are just getting started. For those that don't know me in the community, they probably know our garden. Our garden is the Big Blue Victorian on Mill Street. That several years back we turned the whole front yard into a garden, and past a year or so we built the white greenhouse out there. So that's my daughters and myself. So we want to welcome you to Homegrown, where we hope to help educate our community on how to take their lawns and turn them into grocery stores. So let's get started. Hi, welcome to this episode of Homegrown, where Lynn Muth and I are, and many others in the community, are helping people learn how to garden. We're breaking it down to make it as simple as possible. This is our front yard garden, and today's guest is Chris Vassar. She's a fellow master gardener. So Lynn, what have you been up to?
Oh, gardening. I swear, there are weeds that I have never seen before in my flower beds, and I am attacking them as vigilantly as I possibly can. But I swear at night they must grow 2 feet. I mean,
do you harvest some of those weeds and use them? So something like dandelion or
these
some of those
are just like wheat weeds. I mean, they're just long and flat, and they're about, probably 2.5 feet tall right now.
Oh, geez.
And they're coming up in like my dianthus and in my beds of, echinacea and stuff like that. I don't know where they came from. I've lived here since 2005. I have never had weeds like this before. I don't know. And they're thick. They are just going crazy. So I'm attacking those, but I'm starting seeds mostly.
Yeah.
And having some real good successes with that. And just, enjoying spring. I love the things that pop up that you forget.
I know. It's like, I don't remember planting that. I had a lady come by one time when we were out working in the yard, and she's like, "Hey, can you tell me what this is?" And it was a green onion. And she's like, "I've never planted green onion." And I said, "Well, welcome to the wildlife, They pick the seeds up and they transplant them for you, or the wind or whatever."
Yeah.
So I said, "Embrace it. You got like free food."
Yeah.
So anyway,
these weeds, I'm looking and I'm seeing this big, fat, fuzzy leaf, which I know is a clary sage. And I'm like, and I started clary sages last year, and they're biennial. So that means they won't bloom until this year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did I put that in there? I guess I did. I mean, it's about that big around, and I know I must have put it in there. Yeah, but it's fun. I love springtime in the garden.
Yeah, me too. Well, Lynn, Kristen has jumped in. Hey, Chris, how are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm good. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, welcome to our evolving show.
Okay.
Each week we try to talk about something a little different and try to break it down so the newbies out there can understand the very confusing and complexity of gardening. It's just mostly this is going to just be fun. So,
good.
So tell us about you. I don't think I've ever met you.
Well, I think we've passed in the night.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Hi, Chris.
I put a few things together. Just a little background. I moved up here from Santa Cruz and I grew up in San Francisco. So I never lived where there was sun in the summer. So I had a whole lot of things to learn.
Yes, it's what is it the saying? The coldest winter I ever spent was the summer in San Francisco.
Too true.
Yes.
Too true. So we ended up moving to Morgan Ranch, and I swore that I would never live in old person's development. But, reality hits, and there you go. But fortunately, I got a property that's on the corner, and I have green space across the street. So I feel very fortunate about that. And there was lawn in the front. And lo and behold, we had a drought a few years ago. And the state was actually paying $2 a square foot to take your lawn out.
What?
Yes.
Yes.
We didn't know about
Yes.
that when we did all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like, what was it, 3 years, Lynn? 3 years
Yeah.
ago?
I believe it was 3 years.
Yeah. So I had to submit pictures of, the lawn to verify that I actually had one, and then give a list of California native plants that I was going to plant. I brought out some things that I use. Just what I highly recommend is you get yourself a good pair of gloves and wear them when you're gardening. And also,
Lynn, do you wear gloves, honestly?
Constantly.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the feel of my hands in the dirt or in the soil. If I'm doing heavy stuff, I wear gloves. So if I'm moving rocks or working with lumber or something like that.
I don't like the dirt under my nails.
Oh, I love it.
Almost lost her finger. She was pruning her roses, and then she went out weeding in her garden, and she woke up in the middle of the night, and all this without roses. She woke up in the middle of the night, and her thumb had gotten a thorn prick in it, and there's good and bad microbes in the soil, and the bad microbes attacked her thumb, and they almost had to cut it off.
Oh, geez. Okay, well, maybe I'll wear gloves now. But
I just like gloves, but there are so many good kind of gloves. The nitrile gloves are really, really good.
Yeah,
so
I've tried all kinds, and we definitely go through gloves. That's kind of been the joke about building our garden, is we go through probably a pair of gloves every week when we were building it. But anyway, sorry to interrupt, Chris.
That's okay. So I've got good gloves and a good pair of hand clippers that I put in my back pocket of my jeans, and inevitably have a hole in my butt from the clippers. But hey, then that's an excuse to get a new pair of jeans. And I always have a bottle of water and a hat.
Yeah. I think you can always tell who the gardeners are in town from the clothes we wear.
So I'm just glad you could only see up.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to give you a tour. So let's try this.
Okay. I wear Crocs in the garden. I love the Crocs. Well, I'm not exactly a fashion maven in the garden. Right now I'm wearing a pair of old sweatpants that I've cut off, and and I've got a nice t-shirt on, but I garden behind a huge hedge, and no one can see me.
You're not into that naked garden day, huh?
Well, I have been known to be nearly there. My gates are locked. People can't come in unless we go and lock the gate. But I think it's really important that you wear the proper gloves. They have rose gloves that come up to here. Don't think you can prune roses without wearing that gauntlet glove. I want to do a segment on tools and sharpening them sometime, because that's really, really important. I know a lot of people say, I'm going to use the camping analogy. I don't like to go camping. Well, I don't like to sleep on the ground either. So when I go camping, I have a cot with a mattress and, da-da-da-da. And gardening is pretty much the same thing. If you have the right equipment, it makes it so much easier. And things just move a little more smoothly when you're gardening with the right pair of clippers, as Chris said.
Yeah, and if you don't like prickly plants, you don't plant them.
Exactly.
We don't have a rose bush anywhere in our garden because
Oh, I have almost 3 dozen.
yeah, it's just something we just didn't want to deal with. So
Yeah,
if you don't,
yeah, I
So
understand.
it
Yeah.
looks like Chris might be ready.
So this is the front yard that was lawn, and I've got a little baby red bud coming up here. This is a salvia. I've got a lot of salvias and different varieties in the garden, which the deer do not eat. And this is a Arctostaphylos, and here's the tag. Yay!
Yeah, we do that. We leave the tags on things because it's like, oh, what did we plant?
Yeah, well, it just came off in my hand. And I don't know if you can see them, there's bees all over it.
Oh, wonderful.
Nice.
These bees are going to go back to the hive, and we know whose hives they are, don't we?
All right, we're pretty fortunate because at my daughter's house, the next door neighbors have a little beehive. So their bees come over and visit the yard all the time.
The bees will forage in about a 3-mile radius. It's really, really important to make sure that you have a lot of pollinator plants in your plantings, in your yards. Even if you're growing vegetables, you really need to get some plants in there to draw the pollinators
Right.
in.
We do all out in the front, on the outside of the retaining wall, wildflowers. So something that the bees can come to, and then we've got some other plants and stuff to attract them also.
So I have a question for Chris. Chris, how did you kill that existing lawn? And that was just a flat lawn, as I recall that property when you moved in.
Right. Jose just took it out. He took it out. The two of us together just shoveled it out and took it away.
You didn't use like lasagna gardening or anything like that? You just shoveled it off?
No, we took it out mainly because it obviously had been sawed, so had that mesh underneath it.
With the netting.
The netting, so it was just a pain to dig in. But what we did do is the lasagna part that we did do was with cardboard. So we laid down cardboard and then just probably 5 inches of wood chips.
So Chris, other than food to feed the animals, do you have any plants planted in your yard that people can eat? Lynn.
Yes, ma'am.
If we have gardeners that have a deer problem, which is a very large portion of the people that live in our community, what are some of the things some easy things that people can do initially to help with that?
Well, if you can't fence, and fencing is the best way to keep them out of an area you don't want them in. And they used to say that deer fencing should be 6 feet tall, and now they say that it's 8 feet tall. Melanie mentioned it last episode. Their fences are 8 feet tall. If you don't want that tall of a fence, you can go 3 feet wide and do a double fence of just 3 feet tall. But a fencing needs to be 8. You can also spray, but that's a continual, every week you have to spray. So, you can try to buy plants that are deer resistant. I've had people ask me for deer proof plants, and about the only thing that's deer proof would be a cactus.
Yeah.
And, it's just a really, really big problem. I think you need to do a lot of experimenting. I think gardening itself is a giant experiment. And if you've got a deer issue, they even come up on your porches. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell people. I don't think there's a surefire way.
Yeah, I think in all of the years that we've seen maybe 1 or 2 deer run down Mill Street. So we don't have that problem in town. But I do remember hearing somebody, what they had done is they had done an 8-foot fence, and then they had planted plants that the deers don't like outside of that fence that kind of deters them. And I can't remember what it was. I don't know if it was lavender or something that somebody had planted all around the perimeter of their fence. So like I said, I don't have that problem, but I know many people do, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons people don't want to do a garden, because
because
do all
it's
that
such
work.
an issue.
Yeah.
Well, and then you've got gophers and moles and voles. So gardening in Nevada County is not for the faint of heart. You have to be determined.
Yeah.
And I live downtown, but I live up the hill on Alta Street, and we have deer.
So Chris, I think you're in your garden now, your veggie garden.
I'm in the veggie garden. I'll turn it around. This is a miniature nectarine tree, and I get fruit, a lot of fruit, had a lot of blossoms this early spring, so I'm looking forward to more. The peonies are just about ready.
Oh, mine too, they're swollen.
So this is actually the rubberized edging that you put on lawns, and I've got it in three tiers, and at the top is rhubarb, and around the bottom is strawberry plants, which are needing a little help. They're looking a little sad. And then in the back, I've got the espaliered 6 variety apple, and really the only one that has been successful is the pippin. So I talked to it and said, if you don't produce this year, you're going. Bye-bye. And then
threaten them. That's the way to get them to grow.
Yeah. What's just leaving
I can tell you what doesn't make them grow, cussing at them.
We prune fruit trees all winter, and I have a lot of experience with different kinds of trees. And those, what do they call them, fruit cocktails, those multiple flavors? There's always one dominant one, always. Well, and I don't think they're worth it. Chris, your backyard looks beautiful.
Yeah, it does.
So Lynn, I've got 2 blueberry bushes. Did absolutely everything the master gardeners say to do. Not a berry.
We're right there with you.
Okay.
Yeah. I found blueberries to be hit and miss. I think we had a few berries like the first year, and then
the soil pH is so critical, and you have to stay on it constantly.
Yeah.
When you consider that our native soil, and even once we've doctored it up, got it all nice and yummy for the plants, it is typically around 7% or 7 point, I should say. And blueberries need 4.5 to 5.5. So you consider how acidic that needs to be. You need to work at it constantly. And their root mass is not, they don't have a taproot. They have a root mass, and it is so sensitive. You can't cultivate around that, because if you start cultivating that root mass, you're going to kill the plant.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a, pardon my language, damned if you do and damned if you don't with blueberries. I found they grow best in containers so that you can really treat the soil just right there.
Yeah, we had ours planted along the perimeter. I don't know, I think we had like 6 or 7 blueberry plants, and we finally pulled them out and we put them in their own boxes, because that way we could just work that. But I think we've pretty much given up on them. It's frustrating because you go into the stores and they have these big, beautiful plants, and you bring them home and you can't get them to grow. And it's because
of that.
To me, blueberries are probably one of the hardest.
Okay. Well, we do have success at the demonstration garden in the orchard, and it's exactly what you said, Lynn. They're in wine barrels. And we have a diligent master gardener that follows the feeding to the letter. And there are prolific berries on that one. Although actually we have several. We have several.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. They are prima donnas, and I feel really, really sorry for newbie gardeners who's like, oh, I want to grow blueberries. And I'm like, good luck.
Okay.
They're better off growing grapes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one's going, right? This one's going, and I can put a rose in there.
There you go. You know,
So-
roses have a bad reputation. People talk about how difficult they are to grow, and they're not difficult at all. I think a lot of times people kill their plants with kindness. They worry over them too much. And
Or
I have
water them
almost
too
a
much.
dozen. They water them too much, or they don't water them enough, or they don't fertilize them, or they get all bent out of shape because of black spot. You know, people are like, what do you do for black spot? Well, I always look at my old hands and I'm like, well, there's not much you can do about it. I mean, that's a seasonal thing. You get black spot at the very, very beginning of the season because it's exacerbated by cool, damp springs. And then the next growth that comes out, they're gone. So I ignore the black spots on my hands and on the roses.
Yeah. So today's topic, that kind of is a good lead into today's topic, and that was trying to understand the fertilizers a little bit more. So Lynn's going to share with us her vast amount of knowledge.
Oh, geez.
And in an easy way for us newbies to understand.
Thanks
So,
for sharing your garden, Chris. It's absolutely
Okay.
beautiful.
it is beautiful.
One last shot, okay?
Yes.
Oh, those are gorgeous.
Those are my ranunculus. The daffodils
Oh,
are gone.
beautiful.
I've been planting hundreds of daffodils every year since I was pregnant with my son, who just turned 50.
Yikes.
So there you
Lots.
go. Well, thank you
Lots.
for inviting me.
You're welcome.
I'll keep listening because I have bags and bags of fertilizer.
Okay, I get a lot of questions about fertilizers. People are kind of lost when it comes to fertilizers, and I thought I'd spend some time talking about what those numbers mean. I'm going to be showing you a lot of fertilizers, and I am a huge fan of Dr. Earth, but there are many, 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 many good fertilizers, and I'm almost always organic. I have a big dog, and he likes to nose around on things, and I want to make sure that whatever he gets into is not going to kill him. I like him a lot, but I'm hoping you can see the numbers. Yeah, I don't want to find him dead out here. Although some days when he uses my flower garden as a bathroom, I would like to strangle him. But anyway, this is, I don't like surprises. This is called an all-purpose fertilizer. And if you look across here at the numbers,
555.
Numbers? Yeah, 555. Okay, that means these numbers are percentages of whatever is in here. The first number is an N. That's for N. That's for nitrogen. Okay, so it's NPK. Nitrogen causes vegetative growth, green leafy growth. So if you're growing, let's say, spinach, you would want something that's big in nitrogen. You would want more nitrogen, like this one right here. Okay, see that says 722, and see the name of it? Nitrobig, big nitrogen. This is something that would be really, really good to feed your green leafy vegetables, your collards, things that are just going to get leaves and not fruit on them. Because, okay, nitrogen causes green leafy growth. The middle number is phosphorus, and phosphorus has two roles in a plant. Initially, it helps with root development. So you get a starter fertilizer, it'll have a big middle number so that it gets those roots really healthy and established. Then phosphorus takes over when it comes to fruit production. That's what causes lots of blossoms, lots of fruit, lots of that stuff.
And when you say fruit production, are we talking apples and oranges, or are we talking apples, oranges, tomatoes, eggplants?
Any of that stuff that produces a fruit, I call them all fruit.
Yeah.
Produces a vegetable.
Got it.
Peas, roses. Okay, now see, this one is called More Bloom, and look at the numbers on it. There's absolutely no nitrogen, a lot of phosphorus, and a lot of potassium. I call potassium kind of the vitamin that helps them all work together. It is for the strengthening of the vascular system. The vascular system is that push me, pull you system in the middle of the plant that pulls the nutrients up and the oxygen in and converts everything to sugar, and it's very sophisticated. And I am totally just fascinated by it. It's so interesting to start these little seeds and watch them get bigger and bigger. And right now, everything is going to be getting a lot of this. And I will dilute it with my starts because they're babies. And as I had a rep tell me one day, you don't feed babies human food. You don't feed baby plants adult food. So this would be much too strong for them, and I would dilute it. But if you start out with a starter fertilizer, and they have starter fertilizers now, then the numbers are much smaller. Something else I want to add, these anything over about a 10 usually indicates that it is not organic. This is not organic.
Oh, really?
A lot of people don't care. When you look at the number on a bag or a bottle and it says 30, 20, 25, that is generally synthetic fertilizer.
That's some pretty harsh fertilizer.
It's pretty harsh fertilizer, and I don't use them.
I know one of the things that one of the little tricks that we do is we've laminated some cards for each of the vegetables that we're able to place on each of our beds.
A good idea.
Get that information because we forget. It's like, oh, what does this need? Unless you garden every day and you've been doing it forever and ever and ever like yourself. I mean, it's like, oh, when do I need to do what? So that's one of the tricks that we've done is this is the type of fertilizer that this particular plant likes.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and that's why raised beds work for us because we don't normally mix our plants in a bed.
Mm-hmm.
It's all one thing, so it makes it easy.
Well, and that also helps with what's called hydrozoning. If one thing needs a lot of water and one thing doesn't need much water, you don't want to put them together because you're not going to be able to keep a little bit of water over here. Exactly. So it's a really good idea to put those together. Yeah. Exactly. Like I grow my tomatoes separately from where I would grow my green beans because tomatoes don't need as much water as green beans do and all of that. But that's getting way too sophisticated. And I don't want to scare anyone away. I was very, very fortunate to grow up very agricultural background. Huge family vegetable garden that was about 1.5 acres. The whole family worked in it, my aunts and uncles and cousins, and we put up all of our own food. Daddy ran cattle. So I kind of grew up in that background, and I don't want people to think, oh, you can just go immediately into it. It's a learning process, and you have to be really forgiving of yourself. Mm-hmm. I talk to a friend almost every morning who's starting her own seeds, and I just keep telling her, don't beat yourself up over it. It's okay. You're going to have failures. I have failures constantly, and I just kind of laugh at them and move on. Because to me, the reward in the end, to bring that perfect tomato in that you grew, to bring that basket of green beans in that you grew, is very rewarding, very rewarding. And I think we need those little rewards right now. We're going through some difficult times.
It may not be as easy as running to the grocery store or visiting the farmer's market, but the rewards come in so many other ways. Just to say that, hey, I did that, that.
And it's so healthy to be outside. It's so healthy to be outside playing in the soil. And I want to touch on that glove versus no glove thing again. There are good microbes in the soil and there are bad microbes in the soil. And you just don't know, you can't tell because they're microbes. They're teeny. They're invisible to the naked eye. And you just have to be really, really careful.
So, Chris, was that helpful? I know you're a fellow master gardener, so you probably knew all this stuff. But is there any questions that Lynn can help you with as far as fertilizing?
No, she was my go-to person, and we just did a workshop, a master gardener workshop. So we were working on fertilizers. And I'm pretty up on them, and I consistently feed my plants, so I'm good.
Good.
But it's a good review. Thanks, Lynn. That was informative.
Thank you, dear. Thank you very much.
And you know what I didn't know about was diluting. I'd never heard that before.
Which?
For diluting the fertilizer for the little babies.
For the babies.
Yeah, I haven't ever done that, so I will.
I do that the first couple of weeks to get them used to it. And you don't fertilize your babies until they have their first true leaves.
Hmm.
A lot of people will start when they're just starting to, pop up, and it's much too early. The vascular system is not mature enough to uptake those nutrients. So you're just really kind of wasting it. But yeah, I always dilute it the first week or two until I see that they're taking it up and it's not burning on them.
So in
Yeah.
other words, you're not giving the babies the granular food at all. You're essentially liquefying it.
Liquid. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
good to know.
Yep.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm going to be able to go back to this video and remember all of that. So Lynn, one of the main reasons for starting the show was to help people with what to start with seeds right now, what to plant in the ground right now, and taking care of those plants that we need to do right now. So
Right.
I know we've got a lot of leafy stuff that should be in the ground right now: spinach, kale, lettuces, whatnot. So it sounds like we should be using a fertilizer that is high in potassium.
For those leafy greens, it would be something with big nitrogen.
Nitrogen. So high in nitrogen.
High in nitrogen, yeah.
Can you give them too much?
With organic fertilizers, not so much. If you're using synthetic fertilizers, use it exactly as they tell you, because they are chemicals and they will burn.
Gotcha.
The organics are mostly more gentle, and you can give too much nitrogen, and it can burn it.
Okay.
So I start off pretty light and then build up on it, especially with my babies.
Okay. So leafy is nitrogen. And then what about those root vegetables that are in the ground right now, and say they're past the point of they're not little babies anymore?
They need phosphorus.
Phosphorus. Okay.
Except, and I found this very
always
interesting.
An exception.
Always an exception. It depends. Onions, alliums, that'd be leek, onions, garlic, and all of that. For some strange reason, and I learned this through research, are high nitrogen users.
Oh, really? So they're not
Yes.
a leafy, but they like the nitrogen.
They like the nitrogen. And for those, I use, and one of the best, most inexpensive fertilizers out there for nitrogen is fish emulsion.
Mm-hmm.
Stinks to high heaven. Your cat will absolutely love it, but it is the best thing you could use as a nitrogen source. This is a little pricey, but I happen to love this product very much because I know the owner.
Do they manufacture that right here?
Pardon me?
Do they make that
no.
right here?
He's over in Willits.
Oh, okay. Well, close. It was close.
Yeah.
So, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you just taught me something, because I think what we've been doing in the past is buying just kind of an all-purpose fertilizer and using it on everything. And so that probably explains why we were not getting quite the yield of produce that we could have been. I mean, we built the garden just fine. That part we can do. But getting stuff to grow has always been a real challenge for us.
Right, so, right. It's fertilizers.
Cool. Very cool. Okay, well, right. I think that will pretty much wrap up our episode for today. The topic was all about the fertilizers. So Lynn, you're going to close out our show with some last minute thoughts. And remember, the topic is what we should be doing right now.
What we should be doing right now is getting those beds ready, because it's still too early to plant unless you're way down the mountain. Don't be fooled by this warm spell we're having. I noticed the end of next week, we're going to go back to nights in the 40s. Nights should be consistently 55 degrees. A technical way to tell if that you can go out and sit your butt down in your garden and your butt doesn't get cold or wet, then you can plant. But here we go again, an exception. I have seen freezes and frost the first week in June up here, and I'm about 2850 on Alta Hill. And you should know your climate. You should know your zone and what your little microclimate does on your property. That's a really key thing to observe.
Yeah, and I think next week we'll jump into talking about some of those ways we can cheat, because we cheat every year. We get in the ground a little bit earlier than what is recommended. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't.
Well,
so
we can talk about how to cover and all of that.
Exactly,
sort of
all the things that we can do with mulch and all that stuff. Because for those people, they're out there, they're so eager to get those plants in the ground. What is the best thing you can do to hopefully protect them? So that I think is a great topic for next week.
All right, I look forward to that.
So thank you, ladies, for joining us.
Thank you, Ramona. Thank you, Chris. Good to see your face.
Thank you. All
right.
Hug, hug.
All right. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Okay.
Happy gardening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Happy gardening.